Hey guys, welcome back to this channel. So a lot of people are freaking out. I have to say this is probably the most bearish bull market that I've ever seen. I've never seen sentiment this bad, especially when Bitcoin has gone from 18k at its lowest to now 100k. I understand people are freaking out, most likely because they are overexposed to altcoins. I understand, but I'm going to give a bit of an insight about what I'm currently seeing happening in the market. So Bitcoin up or Bitcoin down, what the heck is happening? So something that I'm noticing right off the bat here is if I measure the last time we tested this EMA ribbon, it's been 10 weeks. I'm currently looking at the weekly chart, and you have to understand it's natural for the price to gravitate towards this EMA ribbon. It's always going to happen at some stage, and the longer we spend away from it, the higher chance that we are going to come back and test those levels. So the last time that happened, where there was a retest of the EMA, as we can see here on the 22nd of January 2024, we went a full 14 weeks without properly touching the EMA ribbon. We were kind of coasting above it, but we didn't actually test it, and this really shows just how bullish Bitcoin is. But for the most part, like, this doesn't really happen. Like, as you can see, the last time that Bitcoin didn't touch that the price didn't touch the EMA ribbon was when we were in the peak of bearishness all the way back in 2022, where we went, how many weeks? We went a full 30 weeks without touching the top support. So now that we're above the line, it's just natural that we should come back and test these limits. We went, up really quickly, and I'm not surprised if we just crab a little and we consolidate, kind of like how we did in 2024. I know a lot of people were very frustrated during that time, but you shouldn't be frustrated because the price did go up eventually. And the thing was, like, what usually happens with Bitcoin, and I mean pretty much all the altcoins do the same thing, is that you have this long period of consolidation, and then bam, you get 20-30% in a week, then bam, another 20-30% a week, and it just goes up in a straight line, totally vertical, and then it does nothing. And this is, by the way, why you can't time the market. This is why it's very important to be dollar cost averaging over a period of time, because most of the time Bitcoin is just going sideways and then just all of a sudden it goes vertical. So guys, before I continue on with this video, I just wanted to give a shout out to my sponsor, Cryptonomy. And Cryptonomy is a place where you can do a few things. What you can do here is you can do something called a launch pool. And what a launch pool is, it's similar to how ICOs work. So you go in and you have the opportunity to invest in a number of different projects here. And as you can see, there's 437 projects that have been launched on Cryptonomy, and you can see the average return for getting in. That's 8.59x. So if you want to be able to get in early on projects before they've hit the market, you want to be using launch pool projects. They're basically the new kind of ICOs. And if you get in early, then you can get in before these things get listed on the exchange. And this is a great way to stack your sats. You can see the all-time high for the highest performing one was 57%. So you can definitely do a lot with this, and you can also make money by being a liquidity provider. And what does a liquidity provider mean? Well, basically, there are people that want added exposure to the market, so they might come to Cryptonomy to get a loan, and what they do is they provide collateral, like in the form of Bitcoin, and then they get an equal amount of crypto that they can borrow. And essentially, if you are a liquidity provider, then you can make money on the interest. Now, you share it with the platform 50%, but you can make up to 180% in total returns. So as you can see on the flexible staking, which I've done here myself, if I go to deposit, see, I've already put in $212, and the APR is 24%, but because you're sharing it with the platform 50%, you're getting 12% a year, and that's just a good way to get some nice yield on your product. And Yeah, and then if you look at some of the fixed rate options, you can actually get some pretty high returns. You can get 153% APY, which split in half is around 75%, which is not a bad return on your money. And you might be thinking like, what happens if the exchange shuts down? What happens if, it goes all FTX? We don't really have to worry about that because first, Cryptonomy is backed by 6.1 billion in reserve capital in order to protect lenders on the platform. And if you're wondering what happens if like the borrower defaults on his loan, that's alright, like it's just taken back from his collateral. So you don't have to worry about anything happening to your funds. And if you're worried about trust, Cryptonomy's been around for a long time. It's been around since 2019, which in crypto age is like 100 years. And it's been around obviously for the most volatile of what crypto has had to offer, so it survived all of the debacles of 2022, and it's done so while maintaining a user base of over 1 million people. So it's a very trusted platform. So let me show you how I can do it here. I just go to deposit, and I'm just going to put in 0.025, so it's half of my balance. And I'm just going to put it in for 6 months. And as you can see, I'm getting 18.5% per month, which is really excellent. So I'm going to do that here. Boom. And it is done. And you'll be getting that yield month after month. You have successfully sent a fixed account. Creation request will be pending status until it's approved. There's also 24/7 live chat support and fast withdrawals for up to $1 million. If you're interested in checking out Cryptonomy's Launchpool and its staking opportunities, make sure to use my referral link in the description down below. So getting back into it, what I can see here is likely that we're going to touch off this first support line at 84k. Now the worst case scenario is that we could touch the bottom line here at 69k. If we fall below that and we retest it, it's likely over, but I just don't really see that being likely. I think what's most probable at this stage is we're going to touch down at 85k, and we'll see what happens after that. I'm also looking at the wave trend indicator. We've got a red dot printed above this, the 50 line here, and this is just an indicator that it's oversold, and it's like oversold, and we're likely to trend down for a little while. As you can see here, every time we've gone on, we've got a red dot at the top of this 50 line, we tend to go down or go sideways, and green dots below this line tend to indicate the opposite, that we are oversold and we're likely to start trending up. This is more reliable on the weekly as opposed to these smaller time frames. Now I also want to look here. It does look like we are going to go down just purely based on the technicals. So this is the RSI indicator here, and then when you've got a peak and then a lower peak coupled with the price peaking and then going to a higher high, this is what we call a bearish divergence. So this means that the RSI, which is indicating selling pressure, is actually going down, but the price is going up, and that indicates that we're going to get some correction at some stage. Now, to the degree to which we are going to correct, I'm not sure exactly. Hopefully, again, we just touch off of this first EMA ribbon, this first line, but it's really hard to say. There's a very good chance, in my opinion, that who knows, for the next 2 months, maybe more, we might just trade sideways, and hopefully it's not too bad. I mean, it is a bear market, it is a bull market time, but again, let's not pretend that Bitcoin didn't go from like 15k all the way to 100k. Like, it shouldn't be a surprise that it takes its time every now and then. And I want to look at the Bitcoin dominance as well, because a lot of people are freaking out again because they are exposed to altcoins, and I don't blame them. I mean, a lot of people, including myself, thought we would try our luck because, I mean, the trend tends to be that just on the cusp of the bull market breaking out, we get a collapse in the Bitcoin dominance. So for those that don't know, the Bitcoin dominance is the percentage of crypto that is, of the total crypto market cap that is dominated by Bitcoin. So the higher the Bitcoin dominance is, the lower the overall growth of the overall crypto market, so all the altcoins, etc. So when there's more Bitcoin as a percentage, the less money there is for the altcoins. And as you can see here, as I've shown out in previous videos, we have been on a monster trend for Bitcoin dominance, continuing to go up. And ever since January of 2023, we broke above this EMA ribbon, and we have just been going up in this trend line since. And this trend has been supported for quite some time until here, where in November we actually broke below this line and we went below 58%. And as you can see here, that we've retested the support and we've actually confirmed that this is now resistance. Now, where things go from here, there's two scenarios that could happen. And I know this is going to sound very trite, because I'm going to say essentially that it could go up or go down, but just hear me out with this thought experiment, right? The first scenario of basically there being no altcoin season, it goes like this. If we break above 59% and get back into 59% Bitcoin dominance, we get above this trend line, we retest it and continue going up. Maybe we hit, above 63% and we just keep going up. That is a scenario in which there is alt market is basically cancelled for this season. And I don't like to preach about this particular theory because I don't like to be the kind of person that predicts things. I'm only looking at the history, and the history says that every time, at least since the time of Ethereum in 2017, that we always get an altcoin season. But what is slightly different this time around, again, as I've mentioned in previous videos, is the fact that we aren't in a practically 0% interest rate environment. And it may have been the case that the dramatic rise of meme coins and shit coins and all this is because there was just such cheap money flowing around. And this time around, market, the interest rates are sitting at like 4%. We are kind of cutting, but not as much as people expected. And that's why markets reacted so volatilely to the news that there was only going to be like one or two cuts in the following year. And especially things that are the most volatile of assets, if anything, are like altcoins. So there's a bit of uncertainty about whether we're going to get the altcoin market that we thought. But the second scenario that I want to mention is that we just repeat the history that we've always had, and we do get our altcoin markets. So what I want to see happen is that maybe we are going to have to retest this line at 59%, but we are going to have to make a serious break below the 55% EMA ribbon, retest it, and we're going to have to flip the EMA ribbon, kind of like what happened here, except in reverse. Now, I don't think the trend of Bitcoin dominance continuing to go up in the way that it has is going to happen. I think we are going to get an altcoin market, but who knows if it's going to be muted. And I think we are going to get it. It's probably just going to take a while for it to happen. I speculate that when Trump comes to office, we're going to see a few things change, principally because he wants to lower the interest rates, and I think he's got something to prove to everybody, by getting the economy going, proving the haters wrong. And I think he plans to do that by lowering interest rates, and then he can take credit for the growth in stock market, which is something he was very fond of during his term. And just on one final note, although it's not entirely important, we're still below this the 50. Sorry, we're still above the 50 line of this RSI. So once it goes below 50, that's when we're going to start seeing that drop in Bitcoin dominance, and we can finally start seeing the altcoin gains that everyone's been looking forward to. So let's just talk about some of the macro stuff. So why, again, have alts and Bitcoin been underperforming, but especially alts? Bitcoin can have a rest. It's been on a rocket ship, but let's not pretend that Ethereum, especially Ethereum, and all the others, with the exception of Ripple, have all been just in the can. And as we can see here, Bitcoin under pressure as Goldman trims Fed rate cut expectations. There's potential hike after blowout job reports. Now, it's kind of funny how investors are basically at odds with the average individual. The reality is, if you're an investor that owns assets and you make money simply by owning assets, stocks, whatever, You benefit when there are bad things happening in the economy, essentially, because if there's low job creations and there's other economic turmoils happening, including wars and pandemics, what does the Fed do? Well, we know that they step in, they lower interest rates, they create a borrowing frenzy. All that free money, or cheap money, ends up just flowing into assets in order to avoid inflation, and then people that own assets become even richer. The downside is that it causes inflation, so then the Fed, who is acting as an all puppet master, which they shouldn't be, but what they'll then do is then they'll have to increase interest rates, and then that becomes a problem for the asset holders, but it reduces inflation, which is good for the common man, which, by the way, I think is a pretty messed up system, but you've got to learn to surf the wave or embrace the suck, as I've heard it being called. So as a result, as you can see here, because there was so many new jobs that were created, supposedly, I don't actually think that's true, I'll explain that in a moment, the Fed has had an excuse to not be as serious about cutting rates as they were in the past. And they weren't saying anything too direct about having a hawkish stance, but the Fed can, have an impact on inflation by either changing the interest rates or simply with their words. And the reason why is because if Jeremy Powell in one of the in one of those meetings comes out and says, you know what, we're thinking of maybe not doing a rate cut in this time next year. It doesn't matter whether he does it or not. That's going to spook out a lot of traders to not start borrowing money. That's going to spook out a lot of people into not borrowing for loans and stuff like that. And as a result, it's going to have the same impact of actually lowering rates. And that's why I think that you shouldn't be so concerned about these statements here, because what I'm basically saying is that these goings on they're already priced in. So in a way, the effect is already had, simply by being more hawkish than he was expected. So when it comes around, to it, it's unlikely that we're going to have to see more rate hikes, simply because he's already done the job of, it's kind of like an artificial rate hike, right? They're basically trying to beat the people that are trying to price this in. So I don't think that we're going to see more rate hikes, and then the reverse can be true. It could also be true that, again, because the effect has already been had, later on down the line we could actually get a rate cut, or maybe if there is a rate, maybe if we don't get the amount of rate cuts they were expecting from last year, it might be a sell the news event, and people might be able to sell the news event for the bears who have been shorting the market. So I think with this happening, it's kind of like the worst is generally over on the macro level. I mean, what could happen on the micro with the trading? I mean, who knows how crazy things could get, but it's not a systemic macro issue here. If we are going to focus on the macro, then what matters is the institutions are still buying like crazy. MicroStrategy added 2,500 more Bitcoin, bringing their total holdings to 450k. So to me, that is what matters. That is the most important thing to focus on. What's going on with the FOMC and what's going on in the charts pales into what's actually going on, which is that there are real players with big money that are actually taking Bitcoin away from the total supply. That's going to push things up in the long run. And in regards to what's going on with Bitcoin dominance and whether or not we're going to get an altcoin market, there are a few things that we could see, and this is very short-term stuff, and this is something that could help pump the altcoins. So altcoin market could heat up this week with 3 billion token unlock schedule. Ondo leads charge. Now, I'm not even sure what Ondo is. I think it's some altcoin that has a lot of people invested in it, and a 3 billion token unlock. But I'll have to say, like, I would not be happy if I was a holder of that token and 3 billion was unlocked, because I'm definitely going to be sold so many people's bags are going to start hitting the market, and yeah, a bunch of people are just going to liquidate that, turn it into USDT. But the reason why it could pump the altcoin market is because Ondo, people are already investing in like this altcoin, and so now when they have the opportunity, they might just turn it into some other altcoin, you know. And because yeah, I mean, we are in a bull market, people are likely to turn that into something else, right? Whether that's Bitcoin or whether it's some other altcoin. And I think that's quite likely to happen. I mean, 3 billion is a lot of money. Imagine that money just flowing into everything else in the market. Next thing is US economy is stuck in a showdown between Trump and the Federal Reserve. Now, something I wanted to talk about before is that there is this confusion about where we're going to go this year. Are we going to get more rate cuts, or are we going to be a little more hawkish? And there seems to be a conflict between Jeremy Powell and Trump. Now, I don't know how much of a conspiracy theory this is, but bear with me on this. It seems that a lot of people who have been stuck around for quite a while. And another thing to pay attention to is the battle between Jeremy Powell and Trump. Trump wants to lower interest rates. Jeremy Powell doesn't necessarily want to increase interest rates, but he isn't as dovish as Trump wants to be. And part of the reason why a lot of people are freaking out is because Jeremy Powell has been more hawkish than was originally expected. But with Trump coming into the White House in only 5 days, who knows if Trump is going to allow for this. I mean, he has the ability to fire Jeremy Powell, and we could see someone from the Fed that's a bit more compliant with what Trump wants. But Trump is very likely to fire a lot of people when he comes to office and replace them with his own people. I'm not saying that he has the power to choose who he wants in the Fed, but he can just keep firing people until he gets the person he wants. Because at the end of the day, I think it's really important for him as a president, this is probably what he believes, to get the economy going as fast as possible, because that is the platform that he ran on. So being able to lower the interest rates for him, I think, would be very important. And if that happens, that's when we could see some major things happening in crypto. Alright guys, thanks a lot for watching this video. If you're interested, make sure to check out my referral link in the description below for Cryptonomy. You can check out some of their Launchpool products where you can get crypto projects before they've reached the exchange, and also check out some of their staking products where you can earn up to 180% APY. And I'll see you later.